Hello, welcome to the Inspiring Car Dealer Leaders podcast, a special series from Car Dealer Magazine. Now, in this series, sponsored by Man Island Finance, I've been chatting to some of the greatest leaders in the motor trade to find out how they got into selling cars, how they rose to the top, and how they're inspiring the next generation of automotive retail experts. Now, this podcast is available as a video series on YouTube, or you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or whichever podcast platform you prefer. I'm James Baggott. I'm the founder of Car Dealer. And in today's podcast, I'm chatting to Sean Kelly, Managing Director of BMW Mini Dealer Group Vines. Sean, hello. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
Hey, James, good morning. After that fabulous introduction, I'm not sure inspirational leadership is around me today, but I'll use the loosest sense of the word for your listeners. Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate you putting in the effort. So, for those people who don't actually know you, I'll give you a quick introduction. So, Sean previously worked for BMW UK as the regional manager for 5 years before he started working for Vines in July 2003. Can't read my script. He's now running the group for more than 20 years, and Vines has been running for 4 decades. It's one of few privately owned BMW groups around and has sites in Gatwick, Guildford, and Redhill, and actually sells BMW bikes too. Vines made profit before tax of 5.7 million in 2022 on revenue of 218 million pounds. Sean, thank you for giving up your time today. I really appreciate you talking to us on the Inspiring Leaders podcast. And firstly, let's just start with how you got into the motor trade in the first place.
Yeah, well, I think, James, like a lot of people, I wasn't at school dreaming of joining a garage, let's put it that way. So, like most people, I think I fell into it by accident. I'm an accountant by trade, so that's my background, but it doesn't make me a bad person. And my job early doors was working for the Department of Trade and Industry. So I was involved in the single European market, 1992, all that sort of stuff. But one Sunday, I was flicking through the Sunday Times and saw an advertisement for a role down at BMW in Bracknell. I was living up north at the time. And my first thought was, I bet they get a great company car. And and it's true. And I was in my Renault Laguna at the time. I'm not casting aspersions on Renault Lagunas, but BMW felt like a bit of a trade up. So anyway, long story short is they were after motor trade experience. That was in the advert. So I chanced my arm anyway, put in the application, and I got an instant Dear John rejection letter. So no surprise there. Couple of weeks, months later, I got a call out of the blue that said, we haven't found who we're looking for. Are you still interested? So I said, yeah, of course. Went down, did a couple of assessment centers, BMW, German companies. They like the checklist to make sure you fit the organization. So we went through a couple of processes with them. And I remember we had an assessment center down in the Docklands, and it was the same day that England were playing Argentina in the France 98 World Cup. And I thought, there's no way I'm going to get home in time to watch that game. So I nearly didn't go. I mean, that's how stupid I was 25 years ago. Anyway, long story short is got through that assessment center, went and had an interview with a couple of the guys at BMW. And then as luck would have it, I was appointed as it was a project manager at the time in their training and development department. Then moved into a regional manager role and was there for 5 years. And to be honest, I never envisaged moving over to the retailer side. BMW is a great organization, fabulous company to work for, all that sort of stuff. So, it was a bit of a surprise when I ended up kind of transitioning from gamekeeper to poacher, I suppose. Yeah.
Yes, I only realised how long ago 1998 was when you say 25 years ago.
Yes.
Actually makes me feel quite old. Sean, you've mentioned there a really interesting start to your career, and you obviously then got into the car dealer world. I mean, they are very, very different. So just talk to me about how you end up swapping from manufacturer to car dealer.
Well, to be frank, it was the MD at the time of BMW UK was a chap called Jim O'Donnell. I'm not sure if you've come across him in the world of car dealers and stuff. A very short Scottish, sometimes dour gentleman, but very direct and very controlling. And the long story short is he effectively said to me, "You're in the wrong company." You'd be much better suited to the dealer side. You're not necessarily a corporate man, if you want the right expression there, if you like. And at the time, the Vines business was looking for a finance director. And so Jim effectively made that introduction from BMW to the dealer. So, I've got a lot to thank him for, actually, because he spotted I was a bit of a fish out of water, perhaps, with BMW. I mean, I like to swear like a docker, James. So I might drop a few f bombs in this by accident, but I'm probably more suited to the dealer side, as he was right. But it was a bit of a strange conversation, because when your ultimate super boss says, "I think it's time you probably should leave," that's quite a weird conversation. But in the rearview mirror, it was absolutely the right decision. Yeah.
Sometimes these great leaders like that have just got an inkling for where people fit best. I remember when I ended up starting following my journalism career, I really was at a loss in when I was in about 18 at college. I ended up going back to see a tutor there, and he just said, "You should be a journalist. You should be doing this course." I had no idea, and I ended up down the journalism path thanks to that person. And I think it's those sorts of people who are inspirational. Sometimes you need the push, don't you? And
Yeah.
it's clearly worked for you. Have you taken that forward? Have you sort of taken the way that you were kind of moved into that role and used that in your career over the years?
Yeah, there's no doubt I've done that, actually. And just to labour on the point you made there about people influencing careers and stuff, you're absolutely right. There are two or three individuals in my working life who've definitely changed and shaped how I've either moved jobs or changed approach or that sort of thing. And even Gary Neville the other day was talking about his primary school teacher who influenced him in his career as well. So I think if everybody looks back in their history, they can see these individuals that have made a real significant difference in people's lives. And I suppose I've tried to bring that along into our business over the last 20 years as well. One of the kind of absolute key benchmarks in our business is about finding and developing people in their individual roles. Equally, though, we're a really small company relatively. I mean, the turnover's pretty big, but we're only 3 sites and 250 people, that kind of thing. So often people get to a level where they're ready and want the next job or job role, and we just don't have it. And so I've actually encouraged people from us to leave for that betterment. And subsequently, 2, 3, 5 years later, we've seen people come back to us in a different position when those vacancies were around. So I often have an induction day with our new employees. They get to spend an hour with me, which is the worst hour of that induction day by far. And I have that conversation with all of them. You need to find a job that you really love, and it might not be the job you love right now, but you can see that opportunity to enjoy being at work. And if this business and this role isn't for you, and it doesn't give you that, go and find what it is. We're on this merry-go-round only once, and it's a short journey, isn't it? So you have to do things in your life that are both fulfilling and exciting and make you feel good about yourself. And if that's not working in a car dealer, then you need to go and find that role somewhere else. And I'm a real believer in that.
Yeah, definitely. That's very, very sound advice there. Sean, tell those people listening and watching a little bit about the Vines business and how it's grown.
Well, I mean, when I first joined the company, 20 odd years ago, we were an £83 million turnover company. So we're more than double that, on the way to treble that this year, actually, in terms of that volume. We had a relatively small number of employees, so it was easy to kind of touch the sides and know everyone individually as well. I think what's happened over time is BMW and now the Mini brand have grown naturally as the premium segment and the customer base for those vehicles have grown. But what I think we've been able to hold on to is that real family feeling in the business. It's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? Because families quite often fall out and not necessarily always see eye to eye. But actually, if you're in trouble, then we're here to look after you. I mentioned I was an accountant, and I know sometimes they're a little bit black and white and can be a little bit cold and analytical. So some of that's important, of course it is. but I have to work really hard to focus on that people side of our business, and I try to be, friendly and approachable and interested in our employees. And that's stood us in in really good stead. We've got lots and lots of people with lots of long service in the business. We have a really low attrition rate across the business. So even last year, when we know that there was a big churn in dealers and retailers around the country in the motor trade, we had an attrition rate that was still less than 20% for every role across our business. And that's the acid test for me about whether we're looking after our employees. I think often, and we're seeing some examples of that in the marketplace today, aren't we, where employees are sometimes treated as a cost or a liability rather than an asset. And we work really hard to make sure we're focusing on them as the latter rather than the former.
You run an independently owned BMW group of three dealerships, as you've explained. That's quite unusual, isn't it? Actually, in the BMW network, often they're owned by these big dealer groups, the big PLCs. How does that? What advantages does that give you?
Well, it gives us a bit of both, actually. I think the advantage that we do have is we can make decisions pretty quickly. We can really think about the input of our employees. So we have focus groups around each of the centres where the employees can give us their thoughts and ideas about how we can make the business better for them. We can equally, excuse me, equally we have a really good natural draw for people. And don't get me wrong, some of the PLCs. I mean, I'm thinking of Sytner as an example. I know quite a few colleagues in the BMW network who work for that business, and they look after their employees, have a great business, and lots and lots of long retained staff. But the advantage for us is we can have that too, but equally we can be sometimes a bit longer term in our view for our business. Often PLCs have to report in the quarter. It's about share price, earnings per share, all that sort of stuff, and that drives some behaviours in those businesses. We can take a much longer view, being family owned. They're in it for the long run and the long term investment, the long term returns. So we can take decisions now that affect us for the next 4 or 5 years, even if in the short term that might be detrimental to profit. There are some disadvantages, there's no doubts about it. Number one is I've got limited money. So I can't just write a check for X amount of extra stock or change some of the things overnight that we'd like to in the business. But I think the advantages far outweigh that in terms of our employees and how they feel, and ultimately how customers feel. Happy staff equals happy customers. That's been a mantra forever in this business, yeah.
Sean, talk to me a little bit about your management style. Would you say you've got a style, or is it just sort of kind of come naturally? It's just you.
Yeah, I don't think I kind of mirror anyone or try to put a style in place. I'm just who I am, and I think as human beings, we're all shaped by our experiences, life, input, action, particularly through childhood and your sort of formative years. So I don't have a style per se, if you like, but what I do is I'm really conscious that our business, it's 3 buildings and whatever else, but our business is just the people that turn up every day. So what I'll do, for example, is, I make a joke that my door's always open. It's only ever closed if I'm giving somebody a bollocking, but that is absolutely true. And quite often people, I've got a nice office on the corridor here. Lots of people walk past and somebody might stick their head in and say hello, and I'll stop whatever I'm doing at the time. Doesn't matter what it is, how important it is to me. I'll take those 5 minutes and just have a chat with that individual, because that might be the only time for the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, a month or whatever, that they're spending time directly talking to me. So it's about the discipline, if you like, of recognizing the importance to the individual rather than necessarily what task or activity I might be undertaking at that time. So yeah, our business is all focused on our employees. We've put lots of things in place to keep them happy, healthy, well looked after, motivated, and want to do a good job. And I think for me, my style is just who I am, not what I try to do. Now, some people don't like that. They get rubbed up the wrong way because I'm really blunt as well. So if you're doing a great job, I'll tell you. If you're doing a shit job, I'll tell you straight away too. And some people don't like that degree of candor in terms of feedback. And what we have got as a team, though, across the whole business, anybody's prepared to tell me what is good, bad, or indifferent about our business without fear of recrimination. And that allows us to change things and make things better for people, and shape our business in a really positive way for people, I think.
It is. I appreciate in running a business, it can sometimes be difficult just to check in with people, can't it? And just say, how are you doing? Because when you're running a business, you are incredibly busy and you're doing lots of other stuff. And actually, sometimes taking the time to talk to your staff is really important. What in your opinion though makes a great leader great?
I think there's two things really. I think the first one is around leading by example, and again, it's a bit of a cliche, isn't it? If you go back to the early 70s, John Adair created this sort of Venn diagram that said any successful manager has to look after the task, the team, and the individuals in the team, and they need to be an equal measure. So that for me is, I've even got a picture on my wall. If I could turn the camera around, you'd see that on the wall, and it reminds me as the default accountant to get up, go and talk to people, spend time with them, and make sure you're visible as a leader. So I think being visible is one thing, and I know that's tough when you've got multiple sites and so on and thousands of employees, but you can do that through technology now, and we do video updates for people, all that sort of stuff. So visibility is a massive one for me in terms of leading the business. People need to understand who you are, where the business is going, and they only get to do that by communicating with you. And then the other thing for me, it's just about having let's call it a positive mental attitude. And again, I'm dementedly optimistic. So that's just in my nature. And that's infectious. And I think there are some people in some businesses where if they're having a bad day because it's written all over their face. And bad news is a bit like dog shit, isn't it? Everyone can smell it. So it just radiates out through the business. If you're having a positive approach to life, even if times are tough, actually people just stand an inch taller, they work another 1% faster, or whatever else it is. So I'm really conscious of that. Even if I've got things that are dragging me down, the minute I walk out of the car to go into one of the businesses, it's almost like I put on the show face. And that's something that you really have to wear as a leader in the business.
You mentioned it there, and it's kind of you sort of touched on the subject, but it's incredibly stressful, isn't it, doing the job that you do and actually working in the motor trade? I mean, I've seen it with the people I've spoken to on this podcast, and I engage with regularly. You can see it's tough. How do you deal with the stress? And have you got any tricks that you can tell other people of what you've learned over the years to help them?
Yeah, go home, kick the dog, drink a bottle of whiskey a night, all of the usual sort of stuff, really. No, and it's going to sound a bit glib now, but I naturally don't worry about things, and I know that sounds ridiculous, really, because the thing that I'm concerned about are the 250 people that work for us. I see my job as getting the business to be stable, secure, profitable, so I can pay the wages and salaries of everyone that works in the business. They can pay their mortgage, live their lives, raise their kids, whatever it is. So if there's one thing I kind of wear, it's that responsibility. But equally, on the flip side of that, I'm not here curing cancer. I'm not a brain surgeon. We're just flogging a few motors, hours and parts through our business too. So at the end of the day, it's not the world's most important job that I'm doing in terms of the structure and infrastructure around our business. My job is to look after those people. And I get a real reward from seeing people, living their lives, developing themselves, buying the house they want, going on the holidays they want. That's the bit that keeps me excited and active. I think also in terms of sort of stress, or whatever you want to call it, and responsibility, I think that's really shaped by the individual as well and the circumstances that you've had. I mean, unfortunately for me, when I was young, I lost my brother, my dad, and my mum all before I was an adult. And so that really shapes your view of life. And my view from that is, A, I knew I had to work hard for myself because it was down to me to get whatever I wanted. But B, it's like life is short, actually. If you don't enjoy yourself and you don't kind of be relaxed about the things that cause you stress, actually, you don't know how long you've got on this merry-go-round. So you've got to make the most of every single day. And that's kind of my inbuilt determination. I come to work every day and I can't think of a day where I've not had laughs and jokes and fun. Now, some of that's created by me. I mean, my jokes are atrocious, and all my references now are 30 years out of date. So nobody that works for me anymore gets those references. But I think everybody that comes to work has a decent time here. And that makes me feel great, really, and takes the stress or strain of running the business to a much lower level than it would be otherwise.
Yeah, I think it's very important to be able to a laugh at work. A laugh at work makes the day go a lot quicker, doesn't it?
100%.
Sean, talk to me about the actual art of selling cars. Do you remember your first car sale?
Oh, do you know what? Well, I mean, I remember flogging motors privately myself when I was a kid through. I was going to say Auto Trader. It wasn't even Auto Trader back then. It was bloody Car Trader magazine or whatever it was. I can't remember what they were called. Thames Valley Trader. That's what they were back in the day, before they became this big data behemoth. Ultimately, though, do you know what? Selling cars hasn't changed. And I know there's videos and transparency on the internet in terms of pricing and everything else. Actually, a customer, a person, likes to deal with a person. They like to be listened to, provided with a car or a vehicle that meets their requirements. And ultimately, people buy from people. So, again, whether it's your first car sale or it's your thousandth car sale, the actual activity is the same. The mechanics might be different as to how you get there, but it's somebody like you eyeballing me across a desk or in a showroom, and do I believe and buy into that individual, and are they looking after me? Get those two things right. Doesn't matter on your first or your 500th car. It'll actually work. So I think for me too, what we have a tendency to do nowadays is believe that digital is the solution to everything. So don't get me wrong. There's a place for AI. I mean, you're kind of experimenting that with that yourself at the moment, aren't you? In your used car business, there's a place for video and technology and WhatsApp and chat and all that sort of good stuff. But at the end of the day, the second biggest purchase most people are making in their lives, you want to be confident that you're dealing with somebody and it's a human being who's here to look after you. So yeah, so first to last, same approach.
I certainly concur with that. I mean, the people buy from people is an age-old term, but
Yeah.
it's certainly true. I mean,
Mm.
perhaps maybe talk to me a little bit then about your most memorable deal. Is there a deal that you've done in business, maybe a big car deal or something else that really sticks out in your mind?
Well, it was about, I suppose the best fun deal that we did was to a corporate client down out of our Gatwick centre. It's a chemical company, Novo Nordisk, and they do a pharma company rather. And at the time, they were bringing out a new drug for diabetic individuals, and it was this wonder drug, help you live your life, all that sort of stuff. And they were recruiting a ton of new sales reps to go out and promote this drug to doctors and hospitals and so on. And there were about 90 individuals they were recruiting to then go and sell these products. Anyway, we'd had a fairly long-standing relationship with them, and we were able to construct a deal that said all of their new employees were going to go into a 3 Series saloon as their company car. And so what we said to Novo Nordisk was, wouldn't it be great if on your mass induction day, we came down and sort of talked about cars and products and all that sort of stuff, and then we shipped them all to the dealership and they had the handover on the same day. And they were right up for that as well. So what we did was, it took a lot of planning and organising, but we basically cleared the used car forecourt, cleared all of the service parking of our centre. We had 90 BMWs all ready to go. We'd recruited 25 odd different members of the team, some of which who'd never handed a car over before in their lives, to be prepared for this busload of employees to come up to drive away in their brand new 3 Series. And so I knew the guy from Nova Nordisk pretty well. So I said, on the day, why don't you introduce me? This is going to sound denigrating the competition now. I said, why don't you introduce me as the local dealer who looks after Fiat, and we'll tell them that they're all getting Fiat 500s. And so they had this big day and they were revving up all their team and all these new employees. And they were all kids, sort of, 23, 24, 25-year-olds, sort of ex-grads kind of thing. And they introduced me up on stage. So I got up on stage in front of everybody and I said, I'd just like to tell you how excited we are that you're going to get your car today. And I'm going to extol the virtues of the Fiat 500. And you could just imperceptibly feel the, kind of across the room. And then what we did is we took the picture of the Fiat 500 up and put up the BMW roundel, and it was almost like Robbie Williams had come on stage, so the atmosphere in that room was absolutely electric. And then we took everybody out. There were coaches waiting outside, took them down to the dealership, and then handed over all of these cars in the afternoon. And I remember we did a time-lapse photo of the whole event, and you can just see people and cars flying around the business. And if there was a standout one, I think it's that. A, because it was great to do a deal of that size, clearly. B, it was lovely to see 90 young faces all excited about their car. But equally, I think it was true to our ethos, if you like. We were having fun, and that for me is the bit that customers, whether you're buying 90 cars or 1 car, there's still a passion and drive and desire and energy around owning a motor vehicle. Doesn't matter what the car is. It's a real emotional thing for somebody, and it's about ensuring we remember and recognize that, because it's very easy to lose that when you're surrounded by these cars every day.
What an amazing story. I bet you felt like Steve Jobs at an Apple iPhone.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely like that. Other than I was like Steve Jobs's bald fat brother or something, but other than that, yeah, absolutely right.
Incredible story. I bet that's the sort of thing that you're constantly chasing to do again once you've had the buzz of that.
Yeah, it's amazing actually, and we've had examples, and even selling single used cars to individuals. We've had people in tears in the showroom, customers, because they've thought about buying a BMW for years and years, and they finally managed to get to the point where they're able to own one. And I think it's remembering that what seems run of the mill to us can be absolutely life-changing for someone else. It is easy to get blasé about the vehicles that we sell and drive and all of that sort of stuff. But I still, every night, James, when I get in my car, and I've driven some fantastic cars, as you can imagine, I often look down at the roundel in the middle of that steering wheel and cannot believe how lucky I am. Absolutely. I've won the lottery of life getting this job and working for a brand like BMW. It's transformed my life, absolutely transformed it.
Customers are basically at the heart of everything in Man Island.
It's a well-worn phrase to say we're a people business, but that's exactly what we are. We all care and want to get things over the line for you as a dealership.
Although it's a very fast-paced, pressurised environment, we have fun.
We're very friendly, we're very welcoming, but we're also very professional as well. We like to get the job done.
Our relationship with Man Island has been centric to us doubling our finance business over the last 12 months.
So Man Island are quite unique in that we're a prime bank-owned lender, but we also work with a variety of other finance partners to give up the all-round package.
As we've grown as a lender, we're now on market with the products that we have: hire purchase, PCP, lease purchase, etc.
We're agile, we're resilient, always forward thinking in anything we do. We always want to provide our customers with the best possible user experience.
We don't want to be the biggest in the market, we just want to be the best in the market. And that really for me is all about the people relationships that we have with our clients, whether they're dealers, brokers, or indeed the end user.
You've clearly got a huge amount of passion for your job. I mean, it obviously drives you. But what does your average day look like? I mean, where do you focus your time as a leader on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, it's a real mixed bag. I mean, the nice thing about being the MD of the company is you sort of set your own agenda, don't you? So, today, if I wanted to get excited and look at inquiry management, I can do that if I wanted to with the teams. If, I wanted to go and look at something in after sales, I can go and pick and choose that too. I mean, my days are normally pretty similar. I wake up at sparrows fart o'clock, so it's like 5:30 every morning, whether it's middle of summer or the depths of winter. Always have, always will. I use the first half an hour of my day to kind of get myself up straight for the day. I'll do any emails that come in overnight. We've got sort of foreign family owners, so often stuff comes in overnight. Have a cup of tea, then I go and take the dog for a walk. So must do that every morning, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, brisk walk, gets your brain kind of ready for the day, and then come into the business. And really, there are 3 or 4 regular tentpole things that occur any given month or quarter. So whether they're after sales meetings or our group sales managers or whatever else. So they're kind of fixed and firm in the diary. But outside of that, my time is my own. And so for me, I'm often trying to look for new ideas. And the thing that's one of those detriments of being a small family business, if you like, is we kind of only know what we know. And therefore, finding out about different changes in the marketplace or different opportunities for us to grow our business or different areas for us to improve the customer experience, I've got to go and hunt them down. And so quite often I'll spend time researching, or I'm an avid reader. I mean, I absolutely pile through books and articles and stuff. And often you'll just find 1 or 2 ideas that I can then bring back to our senior management team and say, hey, somebody in a different industry trying this, how do you think that can be implemented here? And so for me, it's about spending time finding new ideas, some of that regular check and test of where the business is performing. But it's also just about talking to our people. And I even block time in my diaries through various days in the week that says walkabout. And so it just reminds me to just do that, go and chat to a few people. How's life? How are you getting on this week? All that sort of good stuff. And often through those conversations, you'll just pick up a little bit of this isn't quite working right. And they might not come out and directly tell you, even though I try and encourage them to do it. But if you can just kind of pick up on a vibe in the business, it allows you to then go and look at it and try and improve it. So, I mean, we've done lots of things that have come on the back of that management by wandering about kind of piece. And I know our HR manager, Elaine, is really focused on industry leading benefits for our team. And we've put lots and lots of things in place that I think you just don't see at other motor retailers. And that's part of the reason I think why we have such good long-standing members of the team, and we have a low attrition rate. It's about the stuff we do that's different. But if all I did every day, sorry, James. Yeah, well, okay, yeah. So, well, we were one of the first businesses to not open on a Sunday. So we've not done that for 5 years now. So again, that's one of those look after your staff, after your team. We don't open the after sales business on a Saturday. So everybody knows in the after sales team, they've got 2 full days break every single week. And that really reduces the burn factor in that massively stressful part of our business. We do all the kind of standard stuff. So people get a day off for their birthday, that kind of thing. But some of the stuff we've introduced that's, I think, quite new or different for our industry is every member of the team, so all 250 people, are automatically entered into what's called a Medicash program. So every member of the team gets up to £1,000 worth of medical or dental expense every single year. So you know how difficult it is getting a doctor's or a dentist's appointment right now. Our team can do all of that privately, so they can make sure they're looked after and their health and well-being's done there. We've introduced, obviously, we have a good company car scheme, and we've got a staff car scheme that works, of course, because everybody's got that. But what we've got on top, for example, is we've got a scheme where if you want to buy big tech, let's say you want a new fancy big telly, but you can't afford to pay for it outright, we've got a scheme through salary sacrifice that will allow them to pay that over installments. We've got a mechanism where people can do the same thing for holidays. So again, it's just recognizing the cost of living challenges that people are getting and then putting things in place that makes life easy for them. I mean, if I showed you the list of kind of benefits that our team get, it's like 2 sides of A4 all in. And what that does, don't get me wrong, if you don't pay the right money, you're not going to get and keep the right people anyway. So we're commensurate on salary, but it's these other things that have come into our business that have really helped retain our people. So, but I haven't heard of anybody doing that Medicash one in terms of every single employee, you know.
Yeah, clearly looking after your staff is really important to you, Sean. Sean, how do you manage your time? Are you a to-do list kind of guy? Are you somebody has to write this down? Are you a tech guy? You know, how do you manage your time as a leader?
Yeah, well, I get the piss taken out of me because I am still a paper and pen kind of guy, actually, and I've got a terrible memory, so I have to write everything down. If I don't write it down, it doesn't get done, whether it's at home or in work or anywhere in between. So, I mean, I've got one of these. In fact, I was going to say I've got one of these mobile phones. I'm looking at you through it. So I've got a smartphone, which means you're always connected to life anyway. So that's kind of my big toolbox, if you like, in terms of day-to-day activities. But I remember I read a book again 25 years ago. It was called Getting Things Done. Can't remember the name of the chap that wrote it now, but it's called Getting Things Done. And basically his simple system is, if something arrives in your life and it takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. Yes, you just get it done and it's out of your hair. If it's something that you can't do now, you either delegate it to someone else or you plan it into your diary to do at a certain period of time. And if it's actually something you want to refer to in the future, you file it away and all this sort of stuff. And that kind of simple system allows me to be productive. So I've already said the golden hour in the morning of doing emails and shit and shite gets it out of the way, and then it allows me to be open for people in the main body of the day. I don't like sending emails anytime after like 10 in the morning and before 4 in the afternoon, because that's the core time I want to be in with the team. So yeah, I think, but like everybody else in the world, you have a list of things in an ideal world you'd like to get done, and half of them at least roll over to the next day because you get interrupt driven. There's issues that happen every single day you can't plan for. And I think it's about ensuring that what's on your to-do list is actually the most important stuff. So and we get examples across the business where people get into a routine of doing things because they've always done it. And I think it's quite difficult to take a red pen and say, why am I doing that? Is it because it makes me feel good, or is it because it's a benefit for the business? And I think a good practice once a quarter, and I try and do this as regularly as that, is just look back across the actions and activities that I've undertaken and say, what's the benefit for the business? And if I can't see that tangible benefit, I'll stop doing it. And that naturally creates that momentum, if you like, of only focusing your time on the big wins. It's that Pareto principle, isn't it? 20% of your time is 80% of your results. So don't focus on the other shit then. Yeah. Just spend your time in that real core area. But often that's really hard to nail down, because you do get in a routine of activity. And sometimes you're doing the same thing you've done for the last 2, 3, 5, 10 years, and you've forgotten why you started that in the first place,
Sean, we've talked a lot about staff and how important they are to your business and how you look after them. This podcast is all about inspiring the next generation of leader. I mean, firstly, I'd like to touch on that a little bit further. And how do you, firstly, identify the right people for your business?
Well, I mean, it's a bit hackneyed, but we hire the smile, not the skill. And so for us, It's all about the attitude of the individual. So, for example, last year, I mean, we just had our HR review, so the stats are hot off the top of my head. 60% of the people we employed last year had no motor trade experience. And that's all about recruiting in people who have the right attitude rather than necessarily the skills or experience of working in the motor trade. Now, there's good and bad in that, of course, because it means you have to spend a lot more time inducting, training and developing those new starters. But the reality is you can't train somebody's attitude. So if somebody's got the right stuff to start with, then actually you can train them on how to sell cars or how to look after a customer service appointment, all of the kind of process. And if I picked out here, we've got a guide. I mean, it says the Brilliant Basics Guide. And so what we have for every role in our business is effectively the 5 or 10 must-do steps. So we can train those into people in terms of how to make those work. But what you can't do is train into somebody that I'm going to wake up every morning, jump out of bed to go to work. I feel happy and looked after, and I want to develop that to people. So, for me, our goal is to find people that are positive, supportive, and have integrity. Those are our kind of 3 brand values, our core values as a company. And we use that across every interview. If it doesn't matter how good you are, you might sell 250 cars a year here, there, and everywhere, blah, blah, blah. If you haven't got those 3 things, you're not the right fit for us. And we've seen in the past where we deviate from that, we've ended up with, toxic's a strong word, isn't it? But somebody that rubs up against everything you want to try and achieve as a business, and they end up leaving because either they don't like it or we have to boot them out anyway. So it makes sense to me to find the right person in the first instance.
And for those people who are in a automotive business, in a car dealership now, who are looking to make that next step or be noticed and want to eventually lead, what advice can you give them to be spotted? How can they be spotted?
Well, do you know what? I think a lot of it comes down to, if we're talking in 2 terms for a minute, if we're talking about people who work for me today who want to get to the next level, that's about, being on time, doing your job, having fun, being noticed for doing a good job, and all that kind of hard work that sort of sits around it. If you're in another business and want to kind of leave to go through interview process and all that sort of jazz, I think it's all about how you present your character. Your CV and your history will speak for yourself, but on the day, it's about finding the right company that you want to work for, hopefully getting the opportunity through the door through a great CV approach, activity, and you need to stand out from the crowd in terms of your recruitment submission for those companies. But again, at the end of the day, we've seen people who interview really, really well, but actually when they're in the business doing the job, the substance sometimes isn't there. So I think you need a range of different techniques to understand what that core individual's like. So it's really weird if I'm ever involved in an interview. It's very rare now, to be fair, because the managers have all been trained in terms of how to do this. I'll ask people questions that are really off the wall, nothing to do with what their jobs are or whatever else. And I'm the first person who looks at the back page of the CV that sees what they do in their spare time. And that's a real indicator of, and everybody says, oh, I love my mum, go to the cinema, I like cooking, blah, blah, blah. Fine. I read books. That's a great one, isn't it? And I read a lot. Okay, well, it doesn't take more than 2 or 3 questions to see if that's really true. And so it's about that. It's about people taking control of their careers, I guess. Nothing happens by accident. If you're stuck in a drudgy job doing a one that you don't like, you've caused that as much as the job has. And so, everybody as an individual should work as hard on themselves as they do at their job, because actually nobody's going to give them a leg up without them putting in that energy and effort in the first instance. And, I see lots of people, not necessarily here at work, but just out and about in life. They're always scrolling. They're always on TikTok and whatever. That's fine. If that's what you want, then that's great. But that time, energy and effort you're putting into looking at other people's stuff, you could be learning a skill, doing a hobby, doing something that enriches your life, or indeed changes your perspective on life. And I really believe everybody has enough time, whatever your job is, to work on improving yourself. You know, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? It's practice, 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 isn't it? And if you're not doing that, actually, you've only got yourself to blame if you're stuck in a job that you're not happy with, or with an employer you're uncomfortable with. So first off, got to look in the mirror. Anybody that's looking to move from a business, mirror first. Have I done everything I can do to get myself in that next employable position? If the answer, and the honest answer, is no, that's the very next thing you must sort out. What am I going to change in my life for me to make me the choice candidate for that next role that comes along? So it's, yeah, it always comes back to the individual, their approach about themselves, what they spend their times doing, and what they are creating in their mindset.
Is there anything, Sean, in the industry that really gets up your nose that you'd like to change or like to see change?
Do you know what? I think, like any industry, you know, we are influenced by the organisms of the whole. And what I mean by that, I'll give you a real life example. October, November, December, 3-year-old used cars got kicked in the nuts by about 10% over those 3 months. Yeah. Now that wasn't about customers coming in the door and saying, I need an extra £1,000, £1,500, £2,000 off every single car you have in stock for every transaction in our business. It just wasn't the case. That was us as businesses, and the sentiment of people like me and managers in other dealers saying, used car sales might have slowed a little bit. We've got a bit of aging inventory. Let's start reducing the prices to see those vehicles go. I'm going to be a bit more reticent to buy at the wholesale prices that we've had before. And all of a sudden we start that kind of used car tumble in terms of pricing. That winds me off the clock, because the macro environment for used cars in the UK at the moment is lower supply, post-COVID registrations returning to the marketplace, and consistent demand. It might not be growing anymore like it was post-pandemic with that kind of delayed purchase requirement, albeit we're definitely seeing that in fleet now for sure. But actually those macro things hadn't changed. All right, interest rates had gone up, cost of living is more challenging, blah, 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 but number of inquiries, number of stock was kind of working. And that detriment is what winds me up about our business. So that's nothing other than us harming ourselves. And you can now instantly see the prices are popping back up and the market's coming back and all that sort of jazz. So it's just nuts for me. And it was so sad to see SUV Prestige, the notice about that. That's what killed that bit. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but I'm convinced that used car provision against those depreciating assets is what caused that business to fold, and it's of no consequence of their own. You know, really, really sad.
Yeah,
that's what winds me up about it. Yeah.
Yeah, very sad indeed, Sean. Final couple of questions to you. I mean, firstly, for those people listening who might not be in the motor trade and thinking about it, what do you say is the most rewarding part of this industry?
Oh my God, there's thousands of things. I mean, the most fundamental rewarding thing for me is it's about dealing with people, customers, team. This is a real people-focused business. If you like spending time with people, having fun and dealing with customers, there's no better industry, because everybody has an opinion or a view or a thought about a vehicle. You know, they either own one, drive one, share one, whatever else it is. So everyone has a tale to tell about a car. And therefore, it's a great business to be in if you like people and all of that activity. Equally, the motor industry is one of those where still, if you leave school at 16 and perhaps you didn't enjoy education, didn't have a good time, whatever else it might be, you can walk out the door with limited or no qualifications, take an apprenticeship in a motor business, and you can ultimately end up running the place. It's still so egalitarian in terms of the approach towards individuals in the business. And we've seen, some of our managers, some of our, real head department managers started off as apprentices. So I've got a general sales manager who started off as a parts apprentice. I've got a head of business who originally started off cleaning cars on a Saturday. It's like that is what the motor industry is brilliant for. It's about your attitude and your efforts, not how good or bright or intelligent you are too. Now, don't get me wrong; it definitely helps to have kind of I mean, as an accountant, I'm a bit biased, but I think if you can get a grasp of numbers and you are comfortable with numbers, the motor trade's a great place to be. To be fair, whether you're a bookie, a bricklayer, or a bloody BMW dealer, if you can understand how to add up and take away, actually, it'll help you in any business or career that you're in. So I think that definitely helps. But ultimately, if you like people and you're prepared to work hard, no better place for people, especially young people. That's the thing that I'm excited about. I mean, I'm an old fart now, so I'm the sun's going down on me rather than coming up anymore, and I understand that. The biggest pool of people in our business are aged between 20 and 30, and I absolutely love that, because kids and young people have an energy and a dynamism and an interest in life that actually keeps you young and excited about the job that you've got. And I see my opportunity as just enabling them to do the best in their lives. And if I can help them even one step up that ladder, in whether it's personal, private, career, or otherwise, that is food for my soul, James. Absolutely. And that's what gets me out of bed every morning.
I think they should put you on TV with that, with an advert for the motor trade, just like that. So, that was truly inspiring. Finally, Sean, the last question to you: what do you wish you'd been told when you started in this industry? What single piece of advice can you give people listening and watching that they should take it when they start their career?
You've got more time than you think. I wish somebody had told me that when I was younger, James. And I wanted to do everything straight away. I worked probably too many long hours, probably had too many kebabs and too many late nights on the booze to try and fuel that activity level. And what I've recognised in the rearview mirror is that I probably didn't spend enough time at home. I probably didn't see the kids enough. Now, the motor trade now and historically is a 7-day-a-week business for most, not all, and that's changing, which is great. Early starts, late finishers, and all of the sort of shit and shite that kind of goes around with that too. And so I probably paid the price for some of the time with my dear lady and our 2 boys. I mean, they're long grown up and gone now. And that would be my advice to anyone that's younger and coming into the business: is you don't have to do everything straight away. Having the same job for 2 or 3 years isn't a career dead end. Actually, it's proving you're getting really good at that role. And so take your time, look after yourself, make sure you're spending the right time in and out of work. But ultimately, you can get anywhere you like if you really focus on your own personal development. So you've got to spend as much time on you as you do at work. And it's that mantra, I think. I wish I'd been told that 30, 40 years ago, because I think it would have made me a better dad and a better husband, probably. And I'm now desperately trying to kind of readdress that. And I think COVID changed a lot of people's attitudes as well. It certainly changed mine, professionally and personally. And I'm determined not to let go of that, even though now the world is back to where it was. It absolutely is. And yeah, that would have been the thing I'd have liked to have heard, I suppose. And that would be my message to everybody else. Take it easy. You've got more time than you think. And focus on yourself at all costs, really.
Sean, some incredible advice today. Thank you so much for giving up your time, for being so inspiring and just telling us some of those stories. It's absolutely fascinating. Thank you.
Oh, James, it's been a delight. Thank you very much for asking me.
Absolute pleasure. Certainly our pleasure. That is Sean Kelly, the Managing Director of Vines. Now, to be notified about more podcasts in the Inspiring Car Dealer Leaders series, sponsored by Man Island Finance, please subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. And if you like our podcast, remember we do a weekly news roundup with a special guest every Friday. You can find that by searching for the Car Dealer Podcast. You can find other episodes in this series on our website, cardealermagazine.co.uk, in the podcast section by scrolling down the homepage. I'll have another episode for you very soon, but for now, thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.